Let's see. Facebook says we're live. Hey, Adam, happy Friday.
Happy Friday, Paul. The broadcast is live. Welcome, one and all.
All the thousands. Look at all those eyeballs pouring in here. Hey, Adam, if it's Friday, what do we usually do on Fridays?
We're usually doing a little bit of learning, learn a little about storage facilities today with Joe Evangelisti.
Yep. So Adam and I were lucky enough to work with Joe on a project that we'll talk a little bit about today, but we wanted to share with the hundreds of watchers on this Friday evening that are anxious to hear about what storage is like, how it works, construction wise. What is this neat little project looking like for them? And he's smarter than we are, and Adam and I need more distractions so no one pays attention to us.
And segue, let's bring him on.
Here we go. Let's bring him on. He's out in the green room. We got to put down all the drinks.
I hope he hasn't left.
Here he is.
He's still here.
He's still here. Look, and he's having a ball. Our green room is legit.
I mean, I've had some intros, but that was
our green room is like none other. So,
wow.
Anyway, Joe, thanks for coming.
It's happy hour, man. Where else would I be?
Answer that call. That's what you should be doing.
And there's people calling me, and let me just go ahead and decline some important people. I'm already hanging out with some important
people. We have serious people right
VIP.
now. So, Joe, we didn't spend a ton of time introing you in all your many ventures, wholesale extraordinaire. Today, we're going to focus on other neat things. Why don't you tell folks a little bit about what you do day to day, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, exciting stuff, man. I appreciate you guys having me on it and coming in and chatting a little bit about what we have going on here. And so my name's Joe Evangelisti. We hang out primarily in southern New Jersey. We call it South Jersey. And we're getting into some self-storage developments around the East Coast right now. We got a couple projects going on. We got new construction development going on in our backyard, about 10 minutes away from where our offices are here. And then we're getting ready to do one up in New York, up in outside of Buffalo. We're going to take a trip up there next week and check it out. So we'll do some live video. And we got a chance to experience a trip out to Denver this week, which was pretty cool. So you guys can check that out on my Facebook wall. Got to see, man, it was like drinking through a fire hose. We saw like 12 different various types of facilities, either in phases of construction or just recently built in the last couple of years. And I say different types of construction because there's, new development, there's refitting of, existing structures. There's, there's multi-story, there's single story. It's an interesting business for me because there's just so many kind of ways you can slice it and dice it. And there's ways that it fits into, different, rural communities and urban communities and, kind of just different ways it works. Right. So it's just an interesting, industry for me, and it's kind of newer for us. I've been learning it as fast as I can for like the last 2.5 years, and me and my team have a diverse background in the real estate industry. For 15 years we've been doing single family fix and flip, some commercial, some retail, some new construction stuff, and now we're going all in on this self-storage development thing. So it's exciting for us, to say the least, to get back into some big commercial stuff. And we're trying to learn the best from the best and eventually get really good at this thing.
So that's great. Cool. Hey, can you talk a little, so you have the kind of more traditional real estate background. Can you talk about a few of the surprises or the bigger differences when you're getting into the storage space area? What are some of the things people might not realize about it?
Oh yeah, people might not realize. Well, I mean, aside from just the sheer fact that the numbers add a lot more zeros on everything, right? I mean, it's just everything is in a much bigger magnitude, which I think is obvious. For us, it was a matter of we were doing magnitude of numbers. I mean, we were doing 80, 90. I think at our biggest year, we did like 98 flips, single family in 1 year. So I mean, we were doing big numbers. But the thing for us was, they were spread out across so many different houses. I mean, there was times we were buying 8, 9, 10 houses a month, selling 8, 9, 10 houses in a month. So we were doing big volume, cash wise and carry wise, but we were spread out over 3 counties, so we were driving 30 miles this way, 20 miles that way, relying on multiple general contractors. So for this, it's like, we're talking way bigger proposals and way more bigger invoices, but it's in one site, right? So for us, we're looking at, hey, we might be doing 4 or 5 deals a year with much bigger numbers, but it's in 4 or 5 different sites, right? And it's on a site you might be dealing with 15 contractors, where you might deal with 15 contractors on a single family home, right? So the numbers themselves are way bigger, but it's simplified in the fact that we're going to be contained to much fewer sites. We're dealing with making sure that you get everything dialed in right and up front, and that's what we're dealing with right now, right? Making sure that everything is drawn perfectly, and the civil engineering is perfect, and the soil's perfect, and the structural, and everything's designed exactly right, and we're making all of those changes up front going into it, and scheduled and built out as well as it can be value engineered on the front side. That way we have as smooth of as a build as humanly possible on the development side, right? So we probably shaved off hundreds of thousands of dollars of cost savings, schedule savings, engineering and time savings through the project in the last 10 days of pouring through the drawings and red lines and changing things and moving things. Literally, there's just this week, as an example, we took the floor plans for the climate controlled 3-story building that we have, and we eliminated 2 corridors, literally eliminated 2 hallways, and shifted where the boxes inside the buildings lay. And that, for example, could add a difference of $20,000 or $30,000 a year in income. When you throw say a 6 cap on there, I don't have to tell you guys, it's a massive difference in valuation for a project like this, right? And so a simple change that sounds so simple like that literally you're taking a red pen, you're writing it on paper, immediately changes the valuation of a project like that. It helps the investors, it helps us, it helps our reputation, and it helps everyone involved, by basically taking the time to say, let's look at this hallway and let's decide, what if we shifted it here? What if we put this elevator over here? What if we banked the elevators together rather than spreading them apart? So all these little things that seem nuanced to maybe somebody, who doesn't have, and by the way, we're hiring the best of the best people. We're trying to team up with the best of the best. So when you hire someone who's built, I certainly haven't built 300, self-storage, but when I hire someone who's built 300 self-storage facilities and understands these type of nuanced things, now all of a sudden he looks at it and says, why don't you think about doing this? Now all of a sudden, it adds hundreds of thousands of dollars of value because, we took the time to take pen to paper and make those little changes. Those are the things that we're learning, and we're learning. Luckily, we're learning up front. We're not learning from failure or experience. We're learning from someone else's experience, which is kind of
right? And that's the cool thing about commercial projects too, is that you can lean on people that have built things 300 times. So you don't pay for that over 300 projects. It's nice. You put a token in when someone will kick out something. It's like, hey, this is a way to, make a whole bunch more money, or make this easier to actually construct and get moving. So
absolutely,
that's really interesting. And I think one big difference that I know you've been working through from the single family side is how important working with local government is. Can you talk a little bit about what you had to do? There's obviously zoning to consider, but what's the big difference you've seen as far as building, moving forward in this storage facility than when you were just doing all single family stuff?
Yeah, just a tremendous difference. Our first deal, for as an example, it's a major impact. When you're dealing with single family, a variance might be something as simple as I'm encroaching on a side yard setback, or I want to extend the building coverage, and my deck is going to encroach in the building coverage, and stand in front of a zoning board for 10 minutes and explain that, and pros and cons, and they say yay or nay, right? Here we're talking, for this first example, the first deal we did and got approved, it was an 18-month process, right? It was multiple board reviews. It was tens of thousands of dollars of engineering and drawings and elevations and explanations and narratives. We literally hired, I'm trying to think of what her title was. She was a planning narrator. Her job was to come in and tell a story and she was amazing. I mean, literally, it was like she literally wrote a narration around why the impact of our project was going to benefit the neighbors and the community, and the positive impact of us being there was going to create versus what the approved uses could have created, right? So, for example, the approved uses of the land before we got our variance were like gas stations or convenience stores or high turnover, high traffic, high engagement type projects could have gone there. Like they could have put a lot of people aren't familiar, like Wawa, right? Wawa is a local like gas station, 24-hour convenience store type thing, right? That was a perfectly approved use that didn't require any variance, any zoning, anything. They could have just bought the spot, dropped the Wawa in there, and boom. Well, our project has residential houses all around it. So these people would have had no leg to stand on if Wawa said, I want to buy this property and drop a 24-hour gas station in there, drop spotlights all around the place. And, people are going to be pumping their gas in your backyard 24/7 and grabbing hoagies and grabbing their smokes and standing in the parking lot. And they're going to be in your backyard and you got nothing to say about it. Right. And guess what? That is what it is. That's the approved use right now. Or you could have a regulated self-storage where one person per hour on average is pulling into this place. We're closed at 11 and we're open at 7 a.m. or whatever. We're not 24-hour. It's a secured facility. It's got, monitored with 24-hour surveillance, the whole thing, right? It's a quiet facility. There's, and it's a way less impact facility. There's the whole thing, right? And so when she did that narration and explained it, there was literally 10 or 15 neighbors at that zoning board hearing. You could see that they were just seething and they were just waiting to get up and say their piece. And when she was done speaking, they were just like, all right, well, maybe it's not too bad. Yeah, maybe this isn't the worst thing that could happen to our, to our little piece of heaven here. Like, okay, I can see it happening, right? And at the end, I mean, literally, and one or two neighbors literally stood up and said, you know what had happened was about 10 years before we bought the land, it was actually converted to this commercial industrial zoning that had nothing to do with us. And one or two of the neighbors actually got up and said, you know what, I'm upset that it was ever converted to the zoning that it is now, but I wish that somebody had explained it to us the way that she just did, that it was getting converted to self-storage. I would be much happier. So she was actually complaining about the zoning that happened 10 years ago and thanking our planning narrator for standing up and saying this. So the whole, long story short, after months and months of planning and careful due diligence and explaining it properly and really looking out for the goodwill of the community, because at the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter what you do. You're not just trying to get by on the community, because at the end of the day, you're part of the community, right? You're building a facility that's going to be in the community. So if you're doing it just to kind of like won over the community or like, get my variance so I can go build my thing, you're still going to be in the community, right? You still have neighbors. You're still going to build there, So we want to actually not only just, get away with it, we want to actually become part of the community and win over the neighbors and, have friends and neighbors to be a part of the community after the fact. So that all plays a part in it. We want them to like us. We want them to understand that we want to be a part of the community. So it's not as simple as a simple setback thing or a building coverage thing. This is a lot more.
Yeah, but I think people forget that dealing with local government, they forget that there's a lot of shared interest out there. They just see it as an adversarial relationship, and your narration and the narrator, I think, highlights the shared interest. There usually is more shared interest than people realize, but when you walk into the room with, as adversaries, things go bad usually. So
100%. Yeah, I actually said something to that effect at the last meeting, because our last meeting was just basically like the final, where we were going through a couple things they had some questions about in the preliminary, and our engineer and the township engineer were kind of like butting heads over like the type of block we were using on the retaining wall or something. And I sat there and I was like, Like there's no reason for us. Like, why are these guys like butting heads? Like almost like it was an adversarial relationship over the type of block. I'm like, you guys aren't on like competing football teams. You know what I mean? Like the job of the township and the job of the engineer are just to figure out like what works and let's get out of here. Like there's like, I don't know. It was funny, but they ended up working it out.
No, it's really smart. And, you know, and your project is only going to be as successful as you kind of make it, right? So if you burn a bunch of bridges and try to stuff something through, I mean, that will make being successful so much harder. So it's good to go with the long game for sure.
Yeah, man, I love that because you got that sign on your wall that says "Do better." I have this saying that's like how you do one thing is how you do everything.
Sure.
Right. And like I think that if you try to, like you just said, if you try to like sneak by or shortcut a thing, it's just going to come back to bite you in the ass in the long run. Like do it right. You know, like if you're going to build something, build it right. If you're going to like, there's no sense in shortcutting something. It's inevitably going to screw you over anyway. So like, just do it right.
Yeah. And if you're not smart enough or you haven't done it long enough to know how small the community is that would do this type of project, like you'll find out very quickly that if you burn a bridge in your township and you try to do one anywhere in the region, like you're going to have so much harder time because all those board of zoning appeals and all those planning commissions, they all know each other. And it's a bad idea. So.
Not only that, I mean, I'm learning it the hard way in New York. A lot of people are connected, but like even in New Jersey, like some of the building inspectors, they're the same inspector in 5 different towns.
Yeah, no, man, everybody's going third party now. So they're trying to save bucks on keeping it in-house. So they hire these third party firms that do it. We have some of that around in the Cleveland area. And yeah, man, you get that one guy, he hates you there. He will hate you over there too. So it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
So you talked a little bit about where this particular project is, and maybe people, and this is going to be fancy technology, so I'm gonna bring it up here. But why don't we talk a little bit about this in particular, because it's one, like you mentioned, you've been talking about and working on for 18 months already. This is the one we're talking about, right? And where is this located? And give us some of the specs on this baby.
I'm super stoked about this thing because as
I feel like I should go to college in there. What is?
I mean, are people going to live in there? Look at that.
It's the most beautiful building.
Can we get water in there? What do we do?
So, like, I'm so passionate about this thing. I've been staring at this drawing now for like 6 months, and we're so close to like getting this thing out of the ground. I can taste it now. So I flew out to Denver last week, and I was standing in a building that was virtually identical to this because, like, our designers who designed this thing anyway, long story short, I was standing in a building that's built.
You stole this idea from somebody else.
How we're building this thing, right?
Yeah.
So long story short, a lot of people look at this building, and for those that are like kind of like geeked out about construction, when we first designed this building, we designed it with heavy gauge steel. You would think like how a lot of big buildings go up. You see those big steel I-beams come in with a crane, and they do beams. They put posts up. They put your beams across, your I-beams go across, and then you basically build like a skeleton, and then you put walls around it, right? So that's how I envisioned this building going up. It's how a lot of big buildings go up.
Sure.
And when I met Barry, so we just brought on Barry, his official title is like, GC or owner's rep.
Construction wizard or something. Yeah.
Construction wizard. And so Barry kind of came across, was referred out of the blue, was kind of serendipitous. I was looking for someone to do construction takeoffs for us and to figure out, just giving us a second set of eyeballs on our budgets and our schedules. And I ran into Barry, and turns out Barry is kind of like the Wizard of Oz in the storage industry. He's done over 300 self-storage developers.
That's crazy.
He's an amazing dude, and background in architecture. He's an architect. He's out of Denver, and he invited us out to come check out his facility and a bunch of deals in different phases of construction. So my partner and I flew out there this week just for a 24-hour visit, and it was like drinking through a fire hose, man. He woke us up 9:00. We hit the road. We were back on the plane by 6, and we had gone through 12 different facilities at different levels of construction. And they build in 100% light gauge steel. Now it sounds crazy, but what they do is
I don't know what that is.
They build in light gauge steel, which is essentially like metal framing, like your typical metal stud framing, right?
Sure.
Now 14 gauge, it's heavy gauge for like a metal stud, but they go 10 foot on center, and they start with a slab on grade, like a 10-inch thick slab. So it's a sizable piece of concrete that's solid across the base. And then every 10 foot, they just put a light gauge steel wall, 14 gauge, and they go up to the second floor. They put the tray, they lay the tray down like your corrugated metal tray, and they pour the next floor. Well, these guys, by the time they get to the third floor, they're on the first floor building the storage lockers by the time they're pouring the concrete roof. So what happens is, from a scheduling and a cost and a labor standpoint, these guys are nonstop. They're able to continue motion. So like in the heavy steel construction aspect, right? They have to actually put the entire skeleton of the building together before they can move on to the next phase of construction. Whereas the way that Barry's team is able to build it, they're able to put the lockers, like they're never stopping the movement, the motion, right? The laborers can continue moving without ever taking time off. So you don't have to redeploy that crew. That crew can keep moving from start to finish and never leave the job site. So can the concrete guys. Once the concrete guys get moving, they pour the first slab, they wait a week, the framers on the first floor get done, they come back, they pour the second slab, they can keep moving, right? Now, once they get done the 3-story building, they can go right to the 1-story garages outside. Now, what you can't see in this drawing, obviously, is the 1-story garage bays. There's going to be about 4 or 5 rows of exterior garage bays next to this 3-story building. So as soon as the framers are done the 3-story building, they're going to go right outside and start framing the 1-story buildings, and they're all metal, right? So the motion allows us to be able to build this thing in a way more efficient and effective time frame, right? So whereas this might have been a 16, 18-month project, we're now projecting we might be able to do this in 11, 12, 13 months, depending on weather. There's certain, restrictions as far as construction, especially in the Northeast, depending on, we were joking because I'm out in Colorado. It's September, by the way, guys. I was out there on September 9th, and it was 36 degrees and snowing.
Yowzers.
And it was 96 degrees the day before, right?
Oh,
but yet in New Jersey last year, we got 0 inches of snow.
Right.
It's like the first time in my life. So, depending on what winter we get this year, we can potentially build this building in 11 months.
Right?
Yeah,
that'd be wild. And are you going to be able to start earning any cash flow, or when can it, or is that still going to be like at 12 months it kicks off? Or can you, if you're able to do layers at a time, are you able to get rolling on that?
Well, that's the cool thing, right? So we have a 2-year ramp up in the facility from the CO, but if we had 18-month construction, we push it down to 12. Well, now we just added 8 months back to our ramp up.
Yep.
So we could theoretically get the CO sooner, start renting units, and then immediately start into our ramp up and start adding income right away, and which also immediately starts lowering our holding costs because we have income to offset the investor capital and the holding costs.
It's huge. That's a big difference. And that wouldn't happen if you didn't somehow meet up with the guy that's done 300 of those. That's the cool part, right? So we're probably giving up 3 to 4 weeks on this front side to kind of, I love the terminology, slow down to speed up. I feel like right now we're in that slowing down phase because we're double checking, we're making sure, we're verifying, we're getting all the engineers on board. But then it's probably going to accelerate the project by at least 3, 4, 5 months. By the time we break ground, we start moving again. So it's exciting stuff, man. And this building itself, I'm stoked to see it bust out of the ground. Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a beautiful building. Not quite what most people think of when they think of storage. So that's obviously a big development, a little different than what most folks are thinking of. You did mention it's going to have some single story. Those are going to be more like the traditional single story storage units alongside this, right? So if you could just enlighten people, there's some other creative ways people are repurposing properties and doing things to put in storage facilities. Can you talk about some of the ways people are repurposing, the types of assets they're repurposing, and some of the creative things they're doing in storage these days?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. So we're heading up to New York next week. Excuse me. And we're repurposing an old darkened Kmart. You got a lot of big box chains going on.
R.I.P. Kmart.
R.I.P. Kmart. Once a heavy duty chain. It's sad to think that one day people won't know what that is, but the reality of it is a lot of big boxes are going out of business. I don't foresee in my lifetime big box being a thing. I mean, I can't see it coming back. You don't see big box opening up anywhere for sure. But you got to find a reason for them to exist. And the thing is, big box itself, which is super interesting. The reality of it is, where are they located? They're located in a retail place. Well, the interesting thing about the storage industry is traditionally it's always been buried in the industrial, off the beaten track, back in the industrial park, down the dark road. Storage is starting to move into mainstream. It's starting to move into the retail storefront. People want this storage you're looking at is on a major road. It's sitting like in bumper to bumper traffic, like during rush hour. There's going to be cars parked out front of the storage unit. This is going to be 30, 40 feet off of the main road, and people will be sitting right out front of this storage unit. It's going retail. People want it to be in a well-lit. You can see all the glass on the front of this building. People want to feel like they can go check into their locker, and they can be by themselves, and they can feel secure, and they can feel safe, and they can park their car out front, and they can go check in and out of their locker and be seen. They don't want to go down some dark, lonely road and feel unsecure and feel like they could be attacked or their stuff could be stolen. They want to be in a well-lit space. So it's going more retail. It's going more, kind of in your face where it's more secure. And so for that reason, those big box stores make a lot of sense for us. It's a good place for us to go. And it's a good size because we want to be in that 80,000 plus net rentable square foot. And Kmart happens to be 100,000 square foot around that space. So for us, there's a mix there. If it's an area that substantiates it, maybe we use the whole store. In New York, we're looking at ideas behind using part of the store as storage, part of the store as a brewery. We have some other, retail options that want to take space there, so we might carve it up. It's a 21-acre parcel, so we might do some pad sites in there. Maybe fast food. Who knows? I mean, there's a whole lot of opportunity there, and every Kmart site kind of has its own opportunities because, again, they were Kmarts. I mean, they were surrounded by your local dry cleaner and tanning salon and all different retail exchanges. So you're in the heart of everything. And Kmart was like the cornerstone store in that area. You generally we need something new.
It's a landmark,
Yeah, it's a landmark, and we need something new to put back in there. And what else is going in there?
I think a case storage is going in there. That's what's going on.
Exactly.
Just preserve that snack bar, man. The Coke slushies,
Exactly.
Delicious slushies.
Cool. Yeah, it's cool. Down in my area, there's an old bread factory that's getting repurposed, and it has a bunch of students. Only about half of it, but is currently being used that way. But yeah, it's interesting. All the different things that people are doing. That's great.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. And in Denver, I went through 2 or 3 conversions, and I'm really interested in doing the conversion piece. I mean, to me, it's actually, it's obvious for a lot of reasons. It's actually easier than development because you have an existing building, and so as long as the building is structurally sound and it's stout, meaning we need 125 pounds per square foot. So it's got to be a little bit more stout than your traditional office building. But old warehouses and stuff like that definitely fit the criteria. And you generally, the big criteria is you want to have a sound roof because that's like your most expensive piece. But that doesn't mean that, budget wise, as long as the building makes sense, it makes sense. But we want to look for good areas that make sense for that. And that's definitely going to be one of those things that we look for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And this is the first of what we hope to be many coming down the pike. So you've, first, anybody out there that might own a Kmart, Joe's your guy. Let's make a connection here on a Friday. There's probably a lot of people watching that own Kmarts. But this is obviously a project we raised a lot of money on so far, and there'll be others. So, of course, if anybody has an interest, reach out to me or Joe or Adam, and we'll make the connection to start looking at this stuff. So as far as this garden state storage goes, what is the next big thing that's happening at this location?
Trees should be coming down here any week. We have a full soils report. So the soils testing is happening next week. They're doing the full dig. So what that basically means is they're trying to figure out the density of the soils to figure out how deep of footings we have to pour for the buildings. Essentially, I mean, we can get into the nitty gritty if you guys want to figure all that out.
No, I don't. Yeah,
Friday.
I get geeked out of the
Friday. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Essentially, we know we have good soils. They have to decide how dense they are to decide how big of footing they have to pour. So they're doing the soil density reports next week, and then trees start coming down. And then as soon as that happens, man, it's going to be guns a-blazing. That's the exciting stuff. Right now, all the engineers are doing their fun stuff and their red lines and their mechanical engineering reports, structural reporting, and all that kind of stuff. We're getting finals on the architecturals where they're going to finalize it's sexy for people to look at elevation drawings like this, but what people don't think about is like that brick has to get selected. And that color of that panel has to get selected.
Absolutely.
Is that stucco or is that like a plasticky thing? Or so like all that stuff is happening right now. All that like final detail stuff is happening. So that's all. The team is just crushing it on that stuff right now, on the detail work. What type of thing are we doing?
And towns want all that detail, right? I mean, they want to know what kind of material that S is in storage.
Exactly.
It goes down. It goes down to those trees and those bushes and where they're sourced from and when they're getting installed and who's your maintenance guy and who's your landscaper and how often. I mean, it's wild.
And we're doing some cool stuff too. Like one of the things that was thrown in as a bonus on this project is actually on the right side of this building. I have an 1.5 acre parcel, which is actually part of the investment deal, as a bonus for the investors involved in here. And we're talking about that right now as like incubator space for small businesses. And one of the really cool pieces that our owner's rep does is he turns these into little 1,000 square foot rentable offices that are actually part of the storage deal. He charges like $1,200 a piece for these things. And when he encompasses them as part of the build, he vastly increases the NOI again. So we're talking about that as an opportunity for this, if the township would allow it under the zoning ordinances. We're talking about the potential for these things called personal warehouses, where he actually builds these like 1,500 to 1,800 square foot, like basically shops where you pull in and there's 20-foot tall ceilings and there's a mezzanine, so that you have like a personal like workshop or like a man cave type thing where you buy that condo. So you can pull in and you can like have your own little man cave with a loft, and you buy it as a condo, so we could condo them out. So there's a lot of different opportunity over there that could be bonus to this project as well. So we're playing around with that side, trying to figure out what to do with that. That's all going to be bonus to the project as well, which is really cool. So all those little tweaks are happening right now behind the scenes, and again, all bonus to the project and to the investors as well. So that's going to be exciting. Lots of stuff, lots of moving pieces.
Yeah, that's really cool. We're excited. We're happy. We're very happy we get to help you out a little bit and a little side of it. So we're pumped this thing's moving along. Adam, you got any other questions?
Yeah. No, I appreciate it, Joe. Really good stuff, good information you shared there. A lot of exciting ideas and things going on with you. So thanks again for joining us.
Yeah, man.
One more thing. We focused on storage, but you obviously have a bunch of other stuff going on. What else do you need to plug here on this Happy Friday?
I got nothing else to plug, man. That's
there you go. That's good. Well, I wanted to give you the opportunity. He's so generous. Well, good, man.
Yeah,
thanks for the time. And I know I learned a little. I won't remember anything now about construction, but at least for now, I know a little.
But we know a guy. So that's cool.
Yeah, we know a guy. That's right.
Love it.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Joe, we'll talk to you soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Have a good weekend.
You got it.
Thanks, everybody.